Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'll be talking about some of the hottest topics in the world of sports right this very moment. And with me here is, I have a few prompts that will guide the topics for today's video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first topic here is Vinicius Jr.'s contract situation at Real Madrid. Now, if you are a Real Madrid fan, or if you heard the news, recently Vinicius Jr. rejected a contract extension offer given to him by Real Madrid. His current contract runs till 2027, which was signed in 2023, and I assume the reason for his rejection is most likely because it feels like he should earn more, right? So I'm trying to break this down because there's other, maybe not very spoken, other sides of this that is not spoken about enough, I would say. Maybe they matter, maybe they don't. But here's the thing. I've noticed that amongst the Real Madrid fan base, and maybe online, there is some division. I think right now Real Madrid has what I would call a superstar problem, in the sense that Real Madrid, since in the past 2 years, they've signed Jude Bellingham, they've signed Kylian Mbappe, and then there's Vinicius Jr. And then it almost feels to me like there's this, maybe I am the one saying it wrongly, but it almost feels to me like there's this struggle to be the Real Madrid poster boy at the club between Vinicius Jr., Kylian Mbappe, and Jude Bellingham, and especially amongst their fan bases. Why I say this is because I've seen specifically certain fan bases, people who claim to be Real Madrid supporters, having fan accounts for particular players like maybe Jude Bellingham, and not liking and pushing certain agenda against players like Kylian Mbappe or Vinicius Jr. Or same thing with Vinicius Jr. The ones that like Vinicius Jr. not liking Kylian Mbappe, not liking Jude. And I find it quite funny. And I also think that this also is influenced by the Ballon d'Or last year, when Jude and Vini were both nominated, and the club appeared to get behind only Vinicius, and went into showed some sort of disappointment and unhappiness with Vinicius not winning, and almost felt like, okay, Vinicius was the only Real Madrid player nominated. So I think there's also some background to this, in the sense that if you look at the Real Madrid team, so Vinicius came in, Mbappe came in last year, got into Madrid last year, and currently is the highest paid player in the Madrid squad. I think at least by the documented numbers, he's currently on 600,000 euros a week. Now Vinicius is, surprisingly to me, the third highest paid player behind David Alaba. Is on about 400. I think is him and Jude Bellingham are on the same, exactly the same amount of wages weekly. Now this is something that I think Vinicius especially might be thinking about, in the sense that these things players will not speak about it openly. But if Vinicius feels like, oh, I'm a two-time Champions League winner, I've done a lot for this club, and Mbappe has come in and he's earning significantly more than, significantly more than I earn, I feel like, okay, maybe he'll feel some type of way. But obviously, I don't think he would voice it out. I don't think he would say it as a professional. He wouldn't do that. But just some of those things, and especially because a lot of people also sort of felt like Mbappe coming in would upset dynamics in the dressing room. So this, for those kind of people, this is just for them their opinion at the time manifesting now. So if you look at it, really, it's something that could potentially develop into a problem. But obviously, for Madrid hopefuls, it's in their best interest that it doesn't. Madrid is still competing for all competitions currently: Copa del Rey, La Liga, Champions League, and as far as on the pitch goes, I think there's some just once in a while incidents where like maybe Mbappe has a chance and Vinicius is kind of open for a pass and Mbappe doesn't pass, and the same thing in reverse. Vinicius has a chance. There's just one or few of those things that have happened this season, and then the other player feels like, pass the ball to me, I was in a better position. I mean, stuff like this happens in every team, yeah, but obviously because of the situation at Madrid and the way people already feel like something is going to happen in the dressing room this season because of Mbappe's arrival, so those kind of things kind of gives more attention to those kind of things, when typically in the past or like on another team, it's not something that anybody would take really serious because forwards can be selfish at night. It's very normal, they want to score. So but Vinicius is in this very moment, I think, trying to bargain for a much higher offer, but also there's also people who feel like Mbappe, for example, is earning a lot and maybe he's upsetting, but then again, yes, Madrid were always going to pay Mbappe probably the highest amount of money, but people should also not forget that Mbappe came in on a free transfer, so which means they spent zero on transfer, so which means the money that they would most likely have spent on Mbappe's transfer, which in present day transfer window will be at least 150 million euros. That one I'm sure of. That money now they all just can divert it to just wages from Mbappe. So which makes sense from an economic aspect and financial aspect. If you look at how Mbappe's arrival, I think he had a slow start, but he's delivering so far. So I would say people who are focusing on the money Mbappe is earning and blah blah blah, I think they're just looking for what to talk about. From all aspects, it makes sense here. People might say Vinicius has done more for the club, but if you want to compare Mbappe, there's a reason Mbappe has a bigger star power. Mbappe has done it at the highest level, the World Cup. Again, I say people should not forget, I'm not a fan of Kylian Mbappe. I mean, he has faced Barca, the club I support, a couple of times with PSG, and he has had quite good performances in Madrid. So obviously, there's nothing in it for me to support Mbappe or be a fan of him, right? So if I'm speaking like this in a way that appears to be in his defense, I think it should mean that I've seen something that says, maybe people are just looking for something to pick on when it comes to Kylian Mbappe. So as far as that goes, I think people should find something else to talk about, because also Vinicius's contract situation can and should not be in any way related to Kylian Mbappe or what he earns. I don't like when fans of the club are bringing it from that angle. So I think Vinicius, is well within his right to bargain for higher money and all of that. But now there's also the Saudi influence, which everybody knows about in football. Saudi Arabian clubs have been getting players from Europe and other, mostly Europe, anyways, for a big amount of money, offering them big wages. Some players are not able to resist. Some, maybe a few, can resist. But Saudi Arabia offered Vinicius a lot of money. But obviously, Vinicius is, I think, in his mid-20s now, just approaching his mid-20s. So obviously, still feels like there's a lot to achieve in Europe, and so he turned that down. I think that was some months ago, sometime last year. So as far as this goes, I think this is a is a developing topic, it's a developing story in football. I think people should keep their eyes on this one because it has the potential. It could end in a couple of ways. Vinicius could leave the club, and this is something I think I and everybody who knows Madrid proper should not be surprised about if it happens, because I mean, Real Madrid sold Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the greats. When he was just 33, he was still, I mean, he was not at his peak then, but he was still very, very good. They sold him, and obviously there were some things between him and Florentino Perez, who is also a no-nonsense man, So, so people should not be surprised. That's one way it could end. Vinicius could leave Madrid. Vinicius could extend his contract, which I think is what will happen, but I don't know for how long. Right. I think obviously he will definitely get an increment, but I think the increment Madrid is offering him in terms of his wages on the proposed contract, he's not really satisfied with that, which is why I rejected. So I think he's holding out for more. And I also feel like, depending on how Madrid's season goes, that will also have an impact. If Madrid have a really, really disastrous season, they lose all trophies they are currently competing for, Copa del Rey, La Liga, Champions League, I think there will be an issue. I think Vinicius might be, if this situation, if they don't come to an agreement, that's Madrid and Vinicius, before the end of the season, then Madrid ends up, say, maybe trophyless, because it's very possible. I think Vinicius will be tempted to leave. As for where he would go, I can't say, because obviously it's going to be a club that can really, really pay him a lot of money. And when you look at it, probably in Europe, probably just two clubs come to mind. That's PSG and Man City. And I really don't see Vinicius going to Man City and PSG. They just signed Vicha Kvaratskhelia in the January transfer window. So yeah, this could really, really go any possible way. But if you ask me, I think Vinicius Jr will stay at Real Madrid. So that's that about Vinicius Jr. Okay, so as usual, my water break, very important to refill. All right, so the second prompt is Manchester City's horrendous season. Can they turn it around? Now, this is a question that is on, as presented to Pep Guardiola, to the players of Manchester City, to pundits alike, to sports analysts like me, So, if you've been following the football season up till now, you know that Man City are currently in a very, very bad state. By their standards, they are in a bad state. I think they are currently 5th on the Premier League table, or 6th. I can't remember exactly. But they've had some really, really disastrous games. They've had games where they've been up by 2-3 goals, and then they draw. They lost to Spurs 4-0 at home. Very, very, Spurs are always, is a very, very tough team for City. But to lose 4-0 to a Spurs side now that is currently like 15th in the table, it's very, very hard to take for City fans. And what their season is becoming now is, what I've noticed is, I think from like December, the story of Manchester City's season has been one where I would say is like this. When they are trying to, they've been trying to revive their season. If you follow Man City, you probably get that feeling that, from maybe December, they string like a couple of wins. You're like, are they back? Are they back? Are they back? And then there's one result that just takes them down again. So that's kind of been the story of their season from like December till now. And in the Champions League, they only managed to make it through on the final day, going one goal down, and then they get to play Real Madrid again. And they're playing Real Madrid for the 4th consecutive time in the Champions League knockout stages, and the 5th time in the past 6 Champions League knockout stages. They played Real Madrid in 2020, I think in the round of 16, if I'm correct. They played Real Madrid in 2022 in the semi-finals, if I'm correct. They played Real Madrid in 2023 in the semi-finals as well. No, I think that was in the quarterfinals in 2023, 2024 in the quarterfinals. And then they're going to play Real Madrid this season again. So it is not also the best Real Madrid side, I have to say, but I have told a few people that I think City would win this game, the game against Real Madrid, over 2 legs. Both teams are Madrid is ravaged by injuries. They have a really depleted squad. The likes of Eder Militao, are out for a long period. David Alaba, the Carvajal, the right back. Madrid have significant injury issues, especially in defense. So it is anybody's game. I wouldn't say, regardless of City's form, I wouldn't say Madrid would win this, and not even also because of the fact that Madrid and the Champions League are like twins. This is literally like their birthright. This is their competition. This is where they thrive. But this City squad over the years have gained some experience too. So yeah, it's a tough one to call. But I think City would come out of that game, and if they come out victorious against Real Madrid, I can confidently say that that's the game that will really revive their season. They won't win. They won't win the Premier League. I think that's already too far away for them. But I think they would end up in the top 4, in one of the top 4 spots. They will make Europe next season. If they beat Real Madrid, that will be the catalyst for the revival of their season. And I don't know. I also don't see them winning. I think if they beat Real Madrid, it would happen in a manner in which it will be a game where both sides are not at their best. So the team that is least terrible than the other, so to say, is the one that will come out victorious on that day, or the team that makes less mistakes, because both teams have the potential to make mistakes in defense as well. So yeah, City are really having a really terrible season, and different people with their opinions about it. Pep Guardiola has some personal off-field issues, and people are making some speculations as to maybe whether he's still that guy, or the possible reasons why City are currently struggling, if it's related to Pep's off-field issues in his personal life. So yeah, as far as that goes, I do think they can turn it around, but how far can they go if they do turn it around, and when will they turn it around? I think they're still in the FA Cup, so that's a trophy they could potentially win. As for the Premier League, I just said I don't see them winning that anymore. I think that's between Liverpool and Arsenal. As for the Champions League, they need to get past Madrid first. That's all I can say. I don't see them winning it. But if they do get past Madrid, the manner in which they do might give some insight as to how far they can go. And obviously, last season is still fresh on their mind when Madrid came to the Etihad, took them to, after they had played a 3-3 draw at the Santiago Bernabeu, came to the Etihad, and another draw. The game went into extra time and penalties, and Real Madrid won and went on to win Champions League. So, and something else to note is in the 2021, 2022, not 2021, in 2022, 2023, 2024 season, that's the last 3 Champions League seasons. In 2022, 2023, 2024, when City and Real Madrid met in knockout stages, the team that won that fixture went on to win the Champions League. In 22, it was Madrid. In 23, it was Man City. In 24, it was Madrid. So, but those two teams this season, these two teams in question, are not as strong as they were as well, at least as of this moment. So, but the team that wins, if they go on to win Champions League at the end of the season, I won't be surprised. But I will not be surprised more for Madrid, because I know this is like their competition, like I've said, and they're used to this. But for City, even if City win, I would kind of believe that maybe they can, because scaling past Madrid is always a tough task. But I wouldn't still say they will go on to win, because I've seen so many times when they've been expected to win this season and they haven't. But it might just be a case of they met Real Madrid on the day, and I think more people would expect Real Madrid to come out on top in this one. I mean, La Liga, they're still top of La Liga, by the way. Don't make no mistake. If I say they are not the best Madrid side at the moment, doesn't mean they can't beat City, over 2 legs. But they're still better than City at the moment. So, so that is why even if City win that game, I can't say City would go on to win the Champions League. But if Madrid win that game, I could say, well, what has happened in 22, 23, and 24 in the past 3 years before now could very well repeat itself again. So as for the question of whether City can still turn around their season, whether they can revive the season, I would say yes, but it's not in a spectacular manner that I think it will happen. It would just be a revival that is quite balanced and that ensures that it gets to Europe next season, and then they are not too far down on the table, or so something that just sort of like damage control, because they've already suffered so many losses uncharacteristic of Man City and Pep. At some point they failed to win in like 8 or 9 games, the first time in Pep Guardiola's managerial career, by the way. So some numbers and some figures and some statistics that have come out of this Man City's current season are very, very abnormal. So yeah, that's just what it is. I do think that they will turn around their season eventually, towards the business end of the season, and maybe when some injured players come back, Ruben Diaz and some other players, and Phil Foden, big form, Kevin De Bruyne and the likes of them. I think towards the end of the season they'll start to rack up more wins, rack up more points. I think they'll finish strongly in the Premier League. So that's that about that. I'm going to the next prompt now, and I'm crossing over now, leaving football for a moment. I'm going to MMA and talking specifically about Israel Adesanya, our Nigerian born, our own. In the UFC, I want to briefly talk about his career. Recently, about a fortnight ago, he lost another fight, his 3rd consecutive loss to Nassourdine Imavov, and a lot of people have been saying it's easy past his best. Is it time for him to retire? He's no longer that guy, and honestly, I agree to all. And also, this recent loss was Izzy's first title fight. Izzy's first non-title fight since 2019, I think, when he became champion. So Izzy is one of the greats. I think there's no question about that. He's a future UFC Hall of Famer, and he has already made his legacy, as far as I'm concerned. And even before the UFC, he had so many wins already in kickboxing, which is his own MMA foundation. So this Israel Adesanya, the fights, I think what I noticed about the fights recently was, and which is one of the reasons why I think, or let me just say, here's the reason why I think Izzy should retire as soon as his UFC contract runs out. In the past 4-5 years where Izzy had been fighting title fights, I had this sense that he was invincible in the octagon. Like he was so good with evading strikes and with the kicks and everything. But recently, the type of hits he would take and he would go down, or he would be shaking a bit, a bit surprising, which kind of shows that he's aging. He's 35 now, and he's no longer as sharp as he used to be. There's younger guys, there's hungrier, there's guys that are coming up that are more hungry, and the middleweight division is very, very competitive right now. So he has lost 3 consecutive fights, and for a long period of time, at least before fighting Jan Blachowicz, he was undefeated in the UFC, stacked up a number of wins. So I think I'm not sure how many fights he has left on his UFC contract, but I think as soon as he sees out his contract, he should call it a day. He should call it a career, as far as I'm concerned. He, like I said already, is a UFC Hall of Famer. He's a legend of the sport. Nobody can take that away from him. But I think his time is up in the octagon, and those. I have to also reference something. His 2 bouts with Alex Pereira took a lot from him, and which is the aftermath of those fights is one of the reasons why I think Izzy has lost a desire to win. Like I feel like he has lost, like he doesn't have enough motivation, because if you look at when he cleared out the division from the time he became champ, even before he became champ, he had been beating guys like Kevin Gastelum, Anderson Silva. He cleared out the division on the way to becoming champ. After becoming champ, beats guys like Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, beats Paulo Costa, beat Yoel Romero. So he cleared out the division basically, and there was some motivation that he needed. And so Alex Pereira came into the UFC, and Izzy challenged him, because they had fought twice in a kickboxing promotion before, and Izzy had lost twice, and he sort of felt like that was the last thing that Izzy wanted to conquer, or that was like the only significant thing he needed to achieve, having won over Alex Pereira, who was an arch rival. So, and then they fought. Alex Pereira knocked him out again, which was sad for me to see, but in the rematch, Izzy stunned everybody, stunned the world basically, and knocked him out cold, which I don't think even the biggest Izzy stans, I don't even think they expected that to happen. So after that fight, I think Izzy got to a point of ultimate satisfaction. If I feel like, to him, in his mind, it was like, okay, there's nothing left. I've become champion. I've cleaned out the division. I've beaten my arch rival finally, knocked him out cold. So he almost felt like, who else? And then faced Sean Strickland and lost, unanimous decision. Faced Dricus du Plessis, lost by submission. Faced Nassourdine Imavov, lost by knockout. Just means that you don't necessarily see Izzy losing by, like, even I think since he came to the UFC, his only loss by knockout before now was to Alex Pereira. So even when he climbed up the division to light heavyweight to challenge Jan Blachowicz to become 2-time champ, two division champ, Jan Blachowicz, who was a bigger and stronger guy and who had more weight in his hands, still couldn't knock out Izzy. He had to win on unanimous decision, and when he lost to Strickland, unanimous decision. And then Izzy, now facing Du Plessis, that fight also was a very, very emotionally charged one because of some bad blood and some trash talk relating to nationality, which I don't want to go into. Some racial undertones as well. But at the end of the day, he lost the fight, and there was some respect between both fighters. But I think the two Pereira fights really took away a lot from Izzy, and he did not have a lot left in the tank as far as his UFC career is concerned. So when he faced Duplessis, I think Duplessis got in his head. He might not admit it, but I think Duplessis got in his head. He was the more emotional fighter in that bout. Obviously now Duplessis is the big dog in division, and Duplessis got the better of him by submission. But seeing Izzy get knocked out by Nassourdine Imavov, I don't think anybody expected him to get knocked out. Some people expected him to lose, which is normal, but to get knocked out is, especially at that time in the fight. So, as far as Israel Adesanya is concerned, he's a legend, he's a future UFC Hall of Famer. He has made his legacy, he has made money, one of the highest paid fighters in the division. If you ask me, I would say it is time for him to call it a career and bow out while with his head held high. He doesn't need to rack up more losses or continue fighting for money. I've seen a lot of fighters in division that kept on fighting when clearly they were past their best. The likes of Tony Ferguson, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and even more recent, even a surprising mention, Conor McGregor. So Izzy is they're younger guys in division. Their guys are very hungry. They're guys who Izzy held on to that belt for a while, more than I think over 4 years or so. So he has had his run. He has had many good moments. So we appreciate him for repping Nigeria. But as far as I'm concerned, it's time for him to call it quits from the UFC and from MMA generally. Okay, so my next prompt here is Formula One, and it is about Lewis Hamilton. So for people who follow Formula One, I know it's not as popular as the sports that I normally talk about, but for people who follow Formula One, you've heard the news already. Months ago, last year, it was announced Lewis Hamilton will be leaving Mercedes. He wasn't going to extend his contract, and he did not just leave Mercedes, he joined Ferrari, which is like the arch rival of, this is like the football equivalent of this is like Messi going to Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid, leaving Barcelona. So it was very, very unexpected, sparked a lot of opinions, but now that the dust has kind of settled, Lewis in his new Ferrari colors, the red and yellow, still a surprise for many, and for me who have gotten into seeing him in Mercedes and Mercedes colors for so long. I think obviously Lewis is my favorite Formula One driver, and so basically going into this new season, I think the Australian Grand Prix is the first race of the season in March. And as far as my expectations for Lewis are concerned, Formula One is an interesting sport in the sense that it's not always the best drivers that get to win. It's as much as is the best drivers as well as the team that has the best car or that can make the best car. So in Formula One, every component is very, very necessary. The engineers, the car, the track. Some drivers are more used to certain tracks than others. The driver himself. So there's just so many factors. Even the mental state as well, because driving a Formula One car is nothing like normal driving. These drivers literally lose weight, lose like 2 kg per every race. That's how intense and crazy it is. So it's a very high stakes, high speed sports. So you have to have a lot of focus basically from 0 to 100. So as far as Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari are concerned, I think that this season Ferrari will go all out. They will try and make the best possible car for Lewis racing, because they also try and make a point. And I think Lewis is going to retire real soon, because everybody knows he doesn't have much time left. Lewis is like in his late 30s now, so he doesn't have much time left. And I think there's only one thing left for Lewis. Lewis is a 7-time Formula One world champion, and he's arguably the greatest of the sport. He's just tied on 7 world Formula One titles with Michael Schumacher. So that's just the only thing left in Lewis's career, and he hasn't been asked about it before, about whether he would stop until he gets the 8th. He would stop before he gets the 8th title, and he said no, he will keep going. So that's just what he wants to. Everybody knows that's the only thing left, and obviously no other driver has as much as him and Michael Schumacher. So he wants to really just cement it by going for that 8th title. And if he gets it, there shouldn't be any more argument about who the greatest Formula One driver ever is. But Formula One is also, like I said, an interesting sport. If you look at Red Bull and Max Verstappen now, the Red Bull team, Verstappen has won the last 4 Formula One titles. They're very, very, they're performing really well. And Red Bull have won, I think, at least 2 Constructors' Championship in that last 4 seasons that Verstappen has won. So Red Bull are also very motivated. They'll be looking at, okay, Lewis going to Ferrari, what could possibly happen, but like I said, Formula One, there's so many components, the drivers, the engineers, even the pit stops, so many little things that could make you win or lose on a race day. The kind of track, the weather, if it's too hot, if it's too cold, if it's too cloudy, if it's rainy, when you change tires, the pit stop, your wet tires, your dry tires, how you maneuver the edges, how you block off someone trying to overtake you, so many things. The safety cars, when there's a crash, if there's a safety car that is, telling, once they deploy a safety car and everybody's going at a certain pace, all those things. Sometimes drivers take advantage of those things, so there's a lot of things. But I think I have high expectations of Lewis in Ferrari, because I think both sides, that's Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari now, they're equally motivated. Lewis Hamilton is motivated, like I said, to get that 8th world title, Formula One World Championship title. And Ferrari, they know what they have on their hands. They have a gem on their hands. They have arguably the greatest in the sport on their hands. So they are equally motivated. I think both teams know like what they can offer. So, and Ferrari has also been challenging recently in the past few years. So, if they deliver a really good car for Lewis, and Lewis knowing that he doesn't have much time left, I think that this will be the season he ends Max Verstappen's 4-year dominance of the sport. I think this will very well be the season. So Formula One fans, look out for Lewis in Ferrari. I know some of you who are Lewis fans, you've still not gotten used to seeing in Ferrari. Don't worry, you eventually get used to it. It happens to everybody. I myself, I'm a fan of Lewis, but I've not also quite gotten used to seeing him in the red of Ferrari. But eventually you get used to it, and when it starts to win, which I'm sure of, when it starts to win races, you get used to it to make you more used to it. So first race of the season in March, the Australian Grand Prix. From there we'll see, maybe that will give us an insight or how Ferrari and Lewis start the season will give us an insight maybe to how the season would go on, or if they would challenge for a title and snatch back from Max Verstappen, the current Formula One world champion. So that's that about expectations for Lewis Hamilton in Ferrari ahead of the F1 season, ahead of the new F1 season. My next prompt here is something that sent not just the basketball world, and not just that did not just make them go mad, but even people in other sports, because it was such a big news that the Luka Doncic trade to the Lakers in exchange for Anthony Davis to the Mavericks and another player. And I think so I have to say, as far as basketball goes, and particularly NBA, I'm not the biggest fan, and obviously I know more about football and MMA and Formula One compared to maybe NBA. I'm familiar with the rules to a significant extent, but specifically this trade aspect, the way NBA clubs trade players, I have not really understood it. But when I saw the announcement of Shams Charania, the ESPN NBA insider, when he broke the news, it was crazy. That tweet got about over 100 million impressions. That's how far and wide it went. So it got many people talking, and people were like, obviously Luka Doncic is one of the best players in the NBA right now, which is why it was a surprise to many. Why would you trade one of your best players? And it was such a big conversation. People, Dallas Mavericks, which is the club Luka Doncic left to go to the Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers, who, by the way, are my favorite team in the NBA. That got so many people talking, and it was such a. When I saw it, I tried to understand what it was and why it happened. Why would you trade what many people believe is your best player? And we were saying the owner of the club, maybe there were some issues between him and Luka, and people were speculating that Luka was overweight, his conditioning, health, fitness, and blah blah blah. And well, a lot of people still feel like it was a bad move for Dallas Mavericks, but a lot of us don't know what happened behind the scenes, so we can't really be certain of the reason why that trade happened. But I think the team that is more happy about this deal is the Lakers, and they believe that they're getting a really good player in Luka Doncic. And so Anthony Davis has gone to the Mavericks, and unfortunately for him, in his first game, got injured and will be sidelined for a long time. So now that has already kind of created a problem for the Mavericks, because now they're like, we just signed someone and he's gotten injured, so we traded for Luka. So it's a very interesting thing, because now Luka Doncic has not played yet for the Lakers as at the time I'm recording this video. But yeah, I think I feel like a lot of people have the sense that Luka will be a success and not even just Lakers fans. I feel like a lot of people have the feeling that Luka will be a success at the Lakers, and the Mavs would regret the trade. But we'll see. We'll find out. But I must say, it was a really really surprising move to trade one of your best players, in that manner. So the fact that I got the whole world talking got my attention as well. That was why I highlighted it, because it's still one of the most talked about topics in sports generally at the moment. So yeah, so we'll see how that one plays out. And that's about the Luka Doncic trade to the Lakers. And my final prompt here is a topic that's been getting a lot of attention recently in Okay, I would try and specify this to football, because a lot of when I go into this further, when I break this down, a lot of the references are going to be football related. So, and that's the growing number of dual nationality footballers or sports person, and this is especially from an African or Nigerian perspective. People ask the question, what countries should they represent? So basically, let me try and break this down. So there's a growing number of dual nationality players. That's people who hold maybe even multi-nationalities, maybe 2 or 3 citizenships. And talking about this from an African Nigerian perspective, we have a couple of people who were either born in Nigeria or an African country and raised abroad, and they have dual nationality, or people who were raised abroad, or people who have parents of different races, maybe a white parent and a black parent. So there's always this when they go into sports, depending on there's always this, oh, who should they represent, who should they not represent. But I have to approach this from an African perspective, because the reason why I've seen a lot of African football fans or supporters have opinions like, oh, dual nationality players who have the nationality of an African country should represent their motherland or their fatherland, as the case may be, or however you want to call it. That sometimes they want to represent the country where they grew up, maybe a European country, for example, only because they think they're better than here. And then I look at those things and I'm like, okay, first of all, there is different reasons why people would feel like they should represent a country that they have nationality, a country that they have citizenship of or not. And there's different scenarios. I'll try and break them down as fast as I can. There are players who are born in Nigeria or an African country raised abroad. The players who are born abroad and raised abroad. The players who are born abroad and have just one maybe African parent or Nigerian parent. So you can see now there's different levels of dual nationality, and that also guides their experiences growing up, and also what they look like. Some players are born and raised abroad, but both parents Nigerian, black, fully black. Some born and raised abroad, one parent's white, one parent black, one parent from another race, maybe mixed race. So in those scenarios, those players will be connected to the motherland, as we call it. They'll be connected to the motherland in different ways, some more than the other. Because normally, if you have parents who are both Nigerians or both Africans, you would feel it's just normal or expected, let me say, to feel more connected to the continent or that country where you're from, as opposed to the country to feel more connected than maybe someone who is a mixed race player, right? So also the way we approach these conversations sometimes in African countries is kind of from a place of lack and from a point of our inability to harness local talent. I think everybody knows that Africa, in terms of football, sports generally, Africa doesn't lack talent. It's the structure that develops and raises those talents that we lack. So, we want these players to play for us, but we had zero contribution in their development. The players probably joined an academy in the country they were raised abroad at a very young age, and then they go pro, and then we want them to represent us, and it's like, fans need to stop pretending like addressing fans need to stop pretending like addressing the issues that we face in African football is a bigger factor than a player deciding whether or not he wants to play for us, because there's also been cases where these players now, their parents even want them to play for the federation, and then by the time they start talking to the federation, some really corrupt federations in Africa, by the way, the federations ask them for money or something, and it's like, and these federations already do those kind of things to like the local players. But when these players who were raised abroad come to supposedly represent their home country, they are surprised by these things because it doesn't happen where they grew up or in the football environment that they developed. So these are the things. And then the numerous problems in Africa: insecurity, travel stress, having to go to games, hostile reception from hosting countries, and just different bad pitches that could injure, that could cause injury, bad playing conditions generally. And so when you look at all these things, if you still insist that or if you have such a strong opinion that mixed race players have to represent African countries, then I'm not sure you are being very objective with this conversation. Because me personally, I am very, very pro-choice when it comes to this. I think dual nationality players should represent only the countries that they choose to represent. They should not feel pressured by anybody or anything to represent whichever country. Like, they don't owe, like, from a African Nigerian perspective now, they don't owe us anything. They don't have to represent us, because like I've said, most of them were not raised here and did not develop their skill and their talent here. So they don't owe us anything. We should not feel entitled to dual nationality players, maybe a Nigerian British footballer going pro at a young age and choosing not to represent us. We should not feel like, oh, we're betrayed. No. And then saying, oh, like, for me personally, I'm pro-choice. Yeah, you can say you might win more trophies with Nigeria, blah, blah, blah. Let's say Nigeria, England example. You guys win more trophies than, well, that's kind of true. But at the same time, well, I personally agree to that, for agenda purposes, by the way. But if we are being more objective, they should really play for whoever they want to play for. They don't owe us anything. And we should stop this mentality of, like, we are asking of people who we did not contribute to. We're asking of them to come and help us and come and play for us. And we always take the conversation from an angle of which we know that we don't produce the best players in this part of the world. We produce good players, but if you say who are the 10 best players in the world to have ever played the game, it will be hard to call an African player. Or if you say 5 best, so we don't produce the best players on this part of the world. So, but that's like the major reason why we always feel like, oh, if you see a player who has grown up abroad and has dual nationality and bears a Nigerian or African name, oh, it's by force he must come and play for us, or the federation must immediately contact that player. No, players should make their choices, and even when they make their choices, they should know what they themselves are getting into, because African football is not a joke. There's a lot of players who have changed nationality and really struggled. An example that just came to my head now is Iñaki Williams. That is a veteran for Bilbao, has been there for a long time. Even his brother is now in the first team for a couple of years, and his brother chose to represent Spain, has won the Euros with Spain. Iñaki Williams is representing Ghana, maybe because it's not good enough or whatever, I don't know. But he has really struggled with Ghana. Like, I don't think he has also connected with the fans enough. He has been to the World Cup with Ghana, fair enough. But the AFCON, they got knocked out in group stage. They didn't qualify for this. So this coming AFCON. So that is an example of, and there are different examples. Of course, there are examples of players who have played dual nationality and they're succeeding, like Ademola Lookman of Nigeria, for example, current CAF Player of the Year. So, but there's always the good and bad side in the pros and cons. And in this situation, considering all factors, I'm going to tell you I am pro-choice. Dual nationality players should represent whoever they want to represent. African countries in particular should stop feeling entitled to the choice of dual nationality players. And even when those dual nationality players decide to represent another country and doesn't work out for them, they decide to represent the country maybe where they grew up in, or maybe where one of their parents is from, that is not an African country. If it doesn't work out for them, maybe they represent that country for three or four caps. They have like 4 or 5 appearances, and eventually they stop getting called up. We should not feel like, oh, it's a gotcha moment. Oh, you went to represent Spain, you went to represent England, you went to represent Italy instead of representing Nigeria or Ghana. And after four caps, when you the odds, after 4 caps, they no longer call you again because they're no longer informed. Shebi, you see, if you came to represent us, we would have been calling you every time. We should stop that as well, because for me, what that even says, that particular thing, what that even says is the fact that those countries have stopped. Maybe some players decide to represent some countries, and those countries don't invite those players again after a few appearances. Kind of shows that they have the luxury of options that we in Africa, most African countries, will never have. That players of certain quality that we feel entitled for them to come and represent us, those countries would just invite that player for like 3 or 4 appearances, and I feel like they won't invite that player again because that player is not good enough for them, and that's the same player we want to come. And so, we should have standards as well. I know it sounds funny as an African football fan, but we should have standards. So that's just it for me, and that's where I will draw today's video to a close. Thank you guys. I have to give a shout out to you guys that have been watching my videos. Some people I've known from the past, a few years ago, who found my channel and who commented and who liked. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Today I just highlighted some of the hottest topics in sports right now. They are really developing topics, so keep an eye out on these topics and observe how they develop. If they turn out to be similar to the predictions I made, you can come back to this video and like and comment and say, oh, I said it. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Please continue to like, share and subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to share the video. Share it to all football fans, all sports fans, and everybody really. And don't forget to subscribe and like, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you.